Hey all, this video will be part 1 of the Story Framework 4.1 upgrade guide. This upgrade guide will cover implementing some of the changes and fixes made in 4.1. So let's jump right into it. So let's open up our content browser. Let's go to Story Framework, Core, Blueprints, and Components. Core again. We're looking for the Interaction Manager. From here, we can go to the Event Graph. We can widen up our functions panel on the left hand side. We can look for interaction and we're looking for the create Quicktime event. So this first bug was with Quicktime events. The event dispatches were still being called from previous QTEs that were set up. So the only fix here is we can move these last two call event dispatches and we can right click and add an unbind all events from on QTE fail, and we can connect it up, and then again unbind all events from on QTE success. Since we are binding the event dispatches from the function itself, we can unbind any previous ones that were already binded. So we need to compile and save and go on to the next one. The next smaller bug was an issue that was allowing players to page while inspecting items instead of reading through a page. So again, while we are inside the Interaction Manager, we can go back to the Event Graph. In the Event Graph, we're looking for the Navigate Page logic. We can open up that graph. And the only change we need to make here is swap the is inspecting or reading Boolean pin to the is reading pin, as we only want the player to be able to page when they're reading through something. So again, compile and save. The next issue or bug that occurred with 4.0 was the ability to reset the dialogue timers if one was in place. So we can fix this by opening up our content browser. Once again, in the core components, we are looking for the sequence manager. Back to the event graph inside the sequence manager. We are looking for the skip subtitled sound segment. We can open up its graph. And then we can open up the skip segment conditions graph. And we need to make some adjustments here. So we can add a new pin onto the AND Boolean node. And then off of the target NPC reference, we can search for a NPC manager reference. So we're getting a reference to that NPC's manager component. From there we can check for can reply, and then from the can reply we're looking for a not, so we're making sure that the player cannot reply. So we can connect this up into the extra boolean pin that we added onto the and compile and save. Next up are some fixes to the player's inventory. So once again, in the core components folder, we're looking for the inventory manager. We can go back to the event graph. From here, we're looking for the use selected item from inventory. We can open that graph up. And then the first branch, we need to also check if the player is in their inventory. So we can just right click and search for in inventory, and we should get that condition. And we can plug that into an AND, so we're checking for both now. Once that's done, we can now also open up the get selected item name graph, as we need to add some more conditions here too. On the break interactable data structure node, we can drop this down and we're looking for the pickup method settings. From here we can drag off and search for another break. If you click on a break structure node, you can hit the hide unconnected pins in the details panel, which will hide any pins that aren't being used on that break structure, which just helps with tidiness. From here we're looking for the can use. And we're going to drag this out into an AND. This will be the second condition in the AND. And the first condition will be did find item from the find item in inventory by name function. Once that's done, we can disconnect this initial branch, as we need to set that up further on in the execution chain. We can reorganize some of these things. We can plug that into the branch now and the execution pin into the function. Once again, hiding unconnected pins. And then just reconnecting everything up again. So this issue that we have now fixed was allowing players to use items when their inventory wasn't open and when they weren't able to use items that had can use set to true. So this has fixed that up now. Back into the event graph, we're looking for the remove selected item from inventory logic. We're going to be making some changes here too. The first one is here at the beginning of the input. Just further on, we're looking for this break into actable data. We can drop this down. Once again, we're looking for the pickup method. We can drag this off and search for break. Once again, hiding any unconnected pins. And on this break, we're looking for can drop. So we can just drag this can drop out into a branch and then hide unconnected pins again. And then this branch gets slotted in just before the inventory contains removed item function. So now this is assuring that the item that the player is attempting to drop has can drop set to true. Now back into the event graph, we're looking for the combine selected items from inventory logic. And towards the beginning, we're just going to drag this input node away. We're going to drag off of the execution pin and search for branch. And in the condition, we're going to place a in inventory condition. So now we are confirming that the player is in the inventory before they combine items. Let's compile and save. Now we can go ahead and open up our content browser once again, back to the story framework folder, core, user interface, widgets, and we're looking for the inventory _w widget. We can hop up into the graph in the top right. From here, we're looking for the display logic graph. And towards the end of this collapsed graph, we are going to add a reroute in the Boolean pin that's running on top and plug this into a branch. And if true, we are going to set the selected slot widget reference to null. So when we close the widget, we are going to set the reference to the selected slot to empty. This is just to assure no other actions can be called when the inventory is closed, specifically item actions. Then finally, we can run the false into the output pin as well. So let's compile and save. Now back inside of the inventory manager, we are going to set up the new logic for dropping items. So previously dropped items would spawn at the player's feet. Now if the player is looking at a surface that is worthy of an item being placed on, then that item will be placed at the location of the player's crosshair. So let's go ahead and open up the remove selected item from inventory logic. Down here, we're looking for the spawn removed item. So this is the logic that will be changed. So firstly, inside the description of this video, we're looking for the get drop trace start and end macro. We want to copy that link in the description. And then in a new browser tab, we can paste that in. We'll get presented with this code. We can select anywhere in this window, hit Ctrl A and Ctrl C to copy it. And then back inside the inventory manager, if you hit paste, it should automatically create that or create a new macro that is used inside the new drop trace logic. So now that we have that macro, we can go back to the remove selected item from inventory logic graph. And then once again, in the description, we're looking for the new drop item logic. We can copy that link and again, paste it into a new tab. Copy it. Now with it copied, we can just simply drag over this previous setup that we have for dropping or for spawning the removed item. We can delete that and paste in the new logic. These invalid pins towards the center of the setup can just be removed. So the break unknown structure, the Boolean reroute, and the select vector. These can all be removed as well as the add. And we can remove the break and make transforms as well. And we can connect the select transform straight into the spawn transform for the item that gets spawned. We can now just go through and tidy everything up, rename anything that needs to be renamed. We can also delete the string reroute at the bottom, as well as this break. We can also delete this get SF interaction manager reference and compile and save. We can go ahead and make sure this is all working correctly if we hit play. If we go ahead and pick up an item and try to drop it, it should spawn at the player's crosshair. Now once again, back in the inventory manager, in the event graph, we're looking for the inspect selected item from inventory logic. We're looking for this top interaction data pin, and we're going to drag out the modify item data if can pick up from inspect macro, and we're going to connect this up. And then finally, if we right click on that same macro and we find references, we are going to remove the other references that are used. So for instance here, we can just simply connect this up and remove this modify item data, that macro. And once again, we can delete this other reference of it and connect this back up. And hit compile and save. So what this did was, previously, when items could be picked up from inspect, they couldn't be picked up again when they were dropped. Now, when we take an item from inspect, when we inspect it from our inventory, we don't have the prompt to pick it up again, but if we drop it, we do have the prompt to pick it up again. Next up, we're going to make some changes to the widget fade camera function. We're going to add the ability to modify its Z order when it gets created on screen. So to do this, in the content browser, story framework, core, blueprints, we're looking for blueprint libraries, and we're looking for the SF general camera general functions. In here, we're looking for the widget fade camera function. On the input of the function, we're going to add a new input, and this will be named Z order, and we're going to give it the type integer. And then this simply gets plugged into the Z order for the add to viewport node. So we can just reroute this along the bottom of this function. And I like to set the default value of this Z order to 2. For the most part, that's above everything else or all the other menus and UI within SF. So now we have the option to adjust that too. Next, back in the content browser, let's go to story framework. Let's go to core, example, level actors, and triggers. We're looking for the set custom view area. Let's open that blueprint up. Inside the update player camera graph, we need to swap around two nodes here. So previously, the control rotation was being updated before the delay that updates the player's view target. We would obviously want that rotation to update after the delay, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. Then we can compile and save. Next up, we're going to modify how the interaction outlines behave. So previously, outlines would only outline an actor. These changes will allow the outlines to only outline specific components within an actor. This is useful if you have an actor that's compiled of a couple of different meshes, but when you want the player to interact with it, you only want a specific mesh to outline. So let's jump into that change now. Let's go to the content browser. Let's go to core, blueprints, components, and core again. We're looking for the interaction manager. Let's go into interaction dependencies. And then we're looking for the general camera interaction trace. And we're going to make some modifications here. So off of the out hit on our line trace, we can search for a get hit component. From here we can drag off and search for component has tag. And we can modify the tag to be soft locked. So aside from the outlines, this is now also checking if a component is soft locked. If you're not aware, if any actor or component has the tag soft locked, then it cannot be interacted with and prompts won't be displayed for it. We do need to replace this and for an or. I did use the wrong condition check there, my apologies. Let's compile and save. Now let's open up the content browser again. Let's go to blueprints, blueprint libraries. We're looking for the SF gameplay functions. In the other, we're looking for the outline actor post-process function. Now in the description, once again, we're looking for the updated outline actor function link. Let's copy that link. Same as before, in a new tab, let's paste that in. Control A, Control C. And before pasting it, let's go ahead and delete the previous setup here, as we are replacing everything. And hit Control V to paste it in. And we can go ahead and connect these pins up. And just quickly straighten everything out. So now both actors or components within actors can use the ignore outlines tag to ignore outlines. Let's now jump into modifying subtitles to support multiple lines. So previously subtitles would have needed to be split into individual lines. Now subtitles can use one long line and the text will wrap correctly. So once again, story framework, core, user interface, widgets. And we are looking for the in sequence widget. Inside here, we can select the subtitle text element. In the details panel, we can search for wrap. We can set the wrap text to something like 1000. I found 1000 to be a good value. Next up, in the top left, we need to add a new element. We can search for vertical box. Then we can add a new vertical box to the subtitles overlay. From there, we can add the subtitle name box into that new vertical box. We can add the overlay underneath the subtitles overlay into that box as well. And then finally, we can add the horizontal box for the skip input into that same vertical box once again. So now everything's packed into one vertical box. With that vertical box selected, we can now change the alignment to be towards the bottom and give it a padding of 50 pixels from the bottom. Let's also now go ahead and reset all of the padding values on these individual elements. So with the subtitle name box selected, we can just hit the reset. With the overlay selected, we can also go ahead and hit reset. We can give this a small padding from the top, something like 5 units, just so that the spacing is all even. And then once again, with the horizontal box that contains the skip input, we can reset its padding and again give it another spacing on the top of 5 units. Now everything should be spaced out nice and evenly. One thing I did forget to mention, with the subtitle text selected, we do also need to change the wrapping policy to allow per character wrapping. So we can compile and save and test this out. So I took the sequence object for instance, or for an example, and I've given it a really long subtitle text.
Awesome.
So as we can see,
photo.
the text will start writing out.
Reminds me of my photography days.
Start wrapping over itself. Finally, to finish off this part of the upgrade guide, we are going to add the updated editor utility widget. So there was some values that were displaying incorrectly or not fully working in the 4.0 version of the utility widget. The new one aimed to amend most of the issues that have occurred and so far seems pretty consistent. So we're going to go ahead and add that now. First things first, let's save our project and close it. Now let's open up our launcher. We're going to find where our project is located. So we're going to select our project. We're going to right click on it and we're going to select show in folder. This should open the location of your project in the file explorer. So now with this open, Let's head back down into the description of the video, and we're looking for the updated editor utility tool. Let's copy that Google Drive link, and we can paste it into a new tab. We'll now get prompted to download the sftools_euw.u asset. So this is the asset itself that we're going to download and insert and replace in our project files. So once this is downloaded, we can open this up. So once it's downloaded, we can now head back into the file explorer for our project. Let's go to content, let's go to story framework. We're looking for the utility folder, and then we're looking for the sftools_euw, and we can just simply delete this and drag in the newly downloaded one into our project. We can close this and launch our project up again. And the editor utility widget should have updated itself. If you don't see it open here, we can just head back into the utility on the asset that we re-imported. We can right click and select run editor utility widget. So that should cover all the fixes and changes in 4.1. The next part will cover implementing the new content introduced in 4.1. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.